The fourth stage is now practice in the journey of a project manager. I can tell you from my experience, practice is the best teacher. This is where your theory and reality they are going to meet. You are now going to face proper deadline being missed. You are also going to deal with stakeholders. Okay? You are also going to do the practical way of actually reporting a project. This is where you are going to face what we mean by project management. This is where the rubber will meet the tar, if I can put it that way. You are going to start dealing with what is called scope creep. What is scope creep? Scope creep is uncontrolled changes coming into the project. And in most cases, this works very well in a waterfall or traditional environment. In an Agile, it's a bit different. Remember, Agile, you are not sure of the scope and you still accept changes as you go. But in a predictive or waterfall approach, you know the scope upfront. Anything that comes in as part of scope, you cannot avoid changes in a project environment. They have to be taken through the proper change management process in a project. Just to understand or to assess the impact on project parameters, for example, the impact on project timeline, the impact on the budget or the cost. You also want to see the impact on the scope, also the impact even on the quality or the risks in a project environment. So when you do the actual practice, this is where you start applying all your project management principles. From principle 1 to whatever number of principles that we have. It's also very important. You're also going to deal with escalations and issue management or even crisis management. I can tell you, in a project environment, there's no way you can run a project from the beginning all the way up to the end without escalations, without some issues, or in some cases, without even crisis. What do we mean by this? Issues can come from different angles. And in most cases, you find it could be something to do with even conflict. Issues can come because of conflict. I was, some 4 or 5 years ago, I was managing a project where I had 9 different nationals. And I can tell you, the moment you put people together from different places, different languages, different cultures, different behaviors, there's bound to be some conflict. How does it come about? The way people think is different. The way people do things is different. Even the way people they work and present themselves is different. So one of the challenges you are going to face is communication. So the way people talk, they might end up raising some unnecessary emotions. So you're going to do a lot of conflict management. Ideas. People can come with different ideas, opposing ideas, totally opposing ideas. You also need to manage that conflict. Okay. So this, when you're doing the practice, this is where you're going to face what really happens in a project. You're going to miss a deadline, as an example. When you miss a deadline, you're going to assess to understand what actually caused that, what we normally call the cause-effect problem. We use what is called Ishikawa diagram to do that. So, you want to understand why is it you missed the deadline. You will get so many explanations, and I can tell you, do it objectively. Don't try to understand why you missed a deadline, like you want witch hunting, which is not good. Try to understand why, so that you correct it now, what is called corrective measures, or maybe you prevent it in future, what is called preventive action. So you miss the deadline, and once you miss the deadline, I can tell you most of the stakeholders, they want answers. So you should be able to provide the answers. How do you recover in such a scenario? So you're also doing status reporting. You're also even managing competing priorities. Let me explain on this. In a project environment, you get a lot of competing priorities. It could be competing in terms of financials. It could be competing in terms of time. It could be even competing in terms of procurement. Okay? It could be even competing in terms of stakeholder engagement. So when you do the practice or the practical way of doing these things, you will always face these competing environments. Okay? So stakeholder management is one of the most important. In fact, there are two, from my experience, there are 2 items which I think if you master as a project manager, it makes your life very easy. Number 1 is communication. I can tell you that is the best skill you can ever give yourself. And it doesn't even restrict itself to project management only. We use communication everywhere, in our daily life, in church, in everywhere you go. You also use communication. So if you want to understand more and appreciate more about project communication, I've created a video on project communication. You can also watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. I know it's quite a long video, but it's quite helpful once you have gone through that. So you need communication. Then number 2, stakeholder management. Okay. Stakeholder management is very, very important. I can tell you, your life becomes very easy if you are engaging and managing your stakeholders properly in a project. And don't make the mistake I've seen with some of the project managers. They think stakeholder management is only done during the first stages of the project. No. Stakeholder engagement and management must be done throughout the project. Even if you have so many phases or stages, a phase or stage in a project environment is just a set of activities that you want to be performed at the same time towards creating or towards making a certain deliverable. I've also created a video on phases and stages. You can also watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. So stakeholder management is done throughout the project lifecycle. Stakeholders, they come and go. Stakeholders, even their power also changes, their influence also changes. So when you are doing the practical or the practice of project management as a stage, these are some of the challenges you face. But I'm telling you, it's one of the few. You always face some challenges in a project, but you still have to fall forward. What do I mean by this? You should always be working with the team, engage the team, brainstorm on solutions, okay? Look at alternative, multi-criteria solution alternatives. Choose the right solution, implement it, and also try to check if the implementation or the solution is working as required. It's called the solution review process. So that is very, very important when you're doing the practice of project management, which is the 4th stage. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. So let's continue with the practice of project management stage. There are quite a number of ways where you can practice to be a project manager. And one of them is to capitalize in your current job if you're working, for example. Even if you're not working, you can even practice by painting your house, as an example, creating some application, depending on what skills do you have. You can still practice on how to manage a project, okay? So let's start by looking at what you can do in your current job. The first item is you can also lead some meetings, okay? Project management is all about meetings. These days and age, we are now using virtual meetings. Normally, physical, we have them, but just a few because people are all over the different geographical locations. So you can start even by trying to lead or to chair the next meeting of a small project or even of something that is not even a project. The advantage of doing that, it gives you this kind of confidence that you can talk in front of people. You're an active listener. You can also facilitate. You can also summarize the meetings. You can also control the meetings. I can tell you from my experience, there is no way you can be a project manager without meetings. Either with your team, internal stakeholders or external stakeholders, project leadership, which is the project board or project steering committee, or even regulator. In some cases, I was involved in projects where we had to meet the regulator just to make sure that we understand. And you can also even meet the organizational senior management, which means the management that is outside the project. Because a project must be done for a purpose. So they might want to understand whether that project is actually aligned to their vision or aligned to their strategic goals and objectives. So meetings, you always be having them. So it's another way of trying to practice to do that. Then in your current job, you can also volunteer, okay, to coordinate some of the processes or activities in your organization or business. The reason for doing this is that kind of coordination is what is required when you're a project manager. Us who are project managers, we do what is called integration management. There's so many competing activities in the project environment. And you want to make sure that they work as one. There are different functional members from this direction, different functional members from this direction, but you still need them to deliver. I can give you a good example in one of the banking projects which I worked on. There were functional members from finance. There were functional members from ICT, the technical guys. There were also some functional members also from retail. There were also some functional members from credit. So you need to glue this team to work together. How do you do that? You coordinate the activities. So if you are a project manager, one of the expected roles that you're going to play is coordination and facilitation of different teams. If you don't do that, you're not going to have coordinated effort towards delivering the same project. So it's also quite important that you do that. And in project management, normally what is very important is to make sure that whether it's scope or it's activity, it's actually done. So in your current project or in your current job, current position in an organization, you can even start by tracking even departmental activities. You want to make sure that something that was agreed is being followed and it's also being done. So practically, that's one of the things you can do. You can start tracking things, and you can also start following up on some activities just to make sure they're done. I can tell you as a project manager, there's no way you can talk in a certain meeting, then things they just work like that. There's a process in project management called monitoring and controlling project activities. So this is where you have to make sure that things are being done as planned, as being also tracked. So you need to follow up. You need to check if it's quality, are people applying the proper stages to make sure you have the right quality, and so on and so forth. Then also in your current job, what you can also do is also to volunteer to write some of the reports, okay? It might not necessarily be a project report, but the fact that you are able to consolidate some knowledge, you're able to consolidate some discussion, some points into a usable report or into something that is very clear in terms of report, then it's quite important because it's also required when it comes to project management. So it is very important that you can offer also to write some of these reports. So the other way to practice is to volunteer on side projects. So I can tell you, this is one of the best ways to gain experience in project management. You can volunteer even at church. There are so many projects that can, not just church as such, but any religious gathering. You can also volunteer to do some community projects, okay? You can also lead them. You gain some experience from doing that. You can even do something that is practical to yourself. I've seen people practicing to do project management by planning and running painting of their houses. I've seen even senior programmers who want to be project managers. They practice being project managers by even creating their own application, okay? And I've seen others even talking about project management or tutoring, which means educating other people, or even mentoring other project managers. So there are so many ways of being practical when it comes to project manager. One of them is just to volunteer to do those side projects. Then, in terms of practice, you can also take some junior roles as project managers or in a project environment. For example, you might want to be a project coordinator. I can tell you learn a lot of things. You might also want to be part of a project management office. We normally call it PMO. It's also another practical way of trying to also gain experience. Or probably you might want to even being an administrator. Project administrator is very important, I'm telling you. All my projects, I make sure that I have a project administrator. If you want to understand more about what is the need and purpose of a project administrator, I've also created a video on the project administrator. You can also watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. So when you offer to be a project administrator, you get exposed to so much that goes on in a project environment. So it's something that you can also request to do. So practice, which is the fourth stage of project management, is very, very important. This is where you can even increase the confidence level in you when it comes to project management. If you want me to create additional videos, based on what we have discussed in this video, or maybe there's a concept or idea that is not clear to you and you need more information about it, you can reach out to me or you can let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.